It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Saturnalia, Happy Krampus, Happy Saint Nick, Happy Yule, Happy whatever the hell you want to celebrate. Just find happiness today because everything sucks right now. And speaking of not sucking, and someone who I always know only to be happy, one of the most positive people I know, Andy Grabner. Hey, Andy.
Hey, I'm surprised that you know that many happy things to say about all these different holidays.
I'm a man of the world.
Yeah, you did the things on Google research earlier. That's all, and then you were reading off the script. But
no, I knew. I learned about Krampus and Saint Nick Day yesterday, but the rest I was aware of. Right, the modern
really
Christmas
fun.
celebration is based off of Saturnalia, which came out of Rome. That was around this time. But, you know, because history lesson, Jesus was not born on this time.
Yeah.
It was more
well,
like
if you look at the Catholic calendar, it's also very hard to explain that Mary gets pregnant on the 8th of December and then she gives birth 3 and 2.5 weeks later.
Hey, don't question it.
Sorry.
Real fun other fact, right? There's some great YouTube videos out there about Christmas and all, and it was banned for a lot of times because it was like a real big drinking holiday, and people would be going to get pubs and getting trashed, and then cause like havoc among town. Like it didn't come back into favor until like Charles Dickens era, but it was like banned left and right. Crazy history. Crazy. This freaking holiday that's taken over everything.
Hey, Brian, quick question to you. Do you want to do a show solo with me, or shall we actually give our guest a chance to say something as well?
Well, I know our guest has been is fueled up for the recording. So I think it's time to maybe let him open the throttle and see where it takes him. So why don't you go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah, I will. Bernhard, I will let you speak in a second. I just want to say one thing. It's a pleasure to have a friend of mine on the podcast today. And the interesting thing is we've known each other for several years now because we both have a big passion in life, which is salsa dancing and Latin music. And interestingly enough, in August, I all of a sudden get a Facebook posting where it says Bernhard Dominguez is doing a podcast, German podcast, and I translate the title of something like Build, Measure, and Learn. It was about digital marketing campaigns, what we can learn from it. I thought, that's really interesting. I didn't know about this. I didn't know that Bernhard is doing this. And I said, listen to the podcast. Then talk to him at one of the parties that we met later on and said, I think we should do something together.
And you call him a friend. Yeah, you call him a friend and you didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
Some
it's
kind
really
of friend
interesting.
ending.
Yeah, not the details. And this is why I think let friends speak when it's time to shut up and let friends speak. Therefore, Bernhard, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And you say something. Also, introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you for letting me speaking, and it was a great time till this moment because I love being guest on this podcast. I'm thinking about preferring listening to you guys because it's a lot of fun. In terms of being friends, it's all about the passion. So we meet each other on occasions like dancing, having fun together, and it's normal that you don't talk about your daily business life. But in fact, I already knew sometimes earlier about your business, and for this I was thankful for speaking to me about these topics, because I also think that this is very interesting to make an interchange between these branches, between these fields, which can sound different, but in fact, if you're thinking logical or you have a strategic approach, there could be a lot of things in similar. So let's see what we are going.
Yeah.
I'm in the online business, let's say like this, now about 20 years. My first mail address is from the 93, something like this. So I did a lot of jobs and always with the focus on online, digital, online marketing, online communication, and nowadays I'm part of a marketing branding agency, and usually I call me the conceptual brain in the digital branch of my agency. So if it comes to talk to new customers about new projects, I'm the first one to show up and to get in touch with them and to search for what they think they need and what we know they need after the talking. So, and that's my part, to get deep into the needs and bring the solutions, what we can offer. And the strategic and analytic approach of our agency is one of the things I love most, because you can go into a topic, into a business, and understand it very, very quick. And that's all about all you need to make a good job at the end.
So Bernhard, I want to point everybody that is that understands German also to the podcast that you did. We will put the link to that podcast in the summary and the description of this podcast. Translated, it was called "Build, Measure, and Learn," as I mentioned in the beginning. And when I listened to the podcast, there were a couple of things that were like just blowing my mind, because they're so close to the work that I do and also Brian that we do. Right? We measure. Well, let's say first we start with building. We're building things. We're building new software. We're building new features. And then what we should do, if we're doing things right, we put it out there. We measure to figure out, how does the software run? Is it used? Is it performing? Does it work well? Does it crash all the time? Or what does it do? And based on that, we learn. And then it's kind of like in a continuous loop until we get to a system where we say, actually, we built something that actually provides exactly the value that we want. In my world, though, and in the last couple of years, Brian, how many years have we been talking now about SLOs and SRE?
Oh, 2, 3 now? I think those started becoming a topic, right?
Yeah. So, Bernhard, in our world, we talk a lot with our clients, with our people, about SLOs, service level objectives. Right? And it's about you're building a new service, and you need to figure out what is the objective of the service, because otherwise, how would you even know if your service runs as expected? And for me, the most striking thing is, and this is also what resonates well with what you said on the German podcast, is the toughest question always is, or the realization is, that most people don't know what the real objective is. They always have a hard time saying, I don't know. Tell me what is my objective. Yeah. And I want to just learn from you a little bit when you approach new clients, as you said, and you're working with them through a digital marketing campaign and trying to figure out the first, I guess, initial goals. What are your findings? What are your questions that you ask? How do you figure actually out what they, what the real objective should be?
Normally, they came up and say something like, we need a new website, or we are searching for an agency which do some online marketing campaigns for us. So, and they think that's the goal. So no, never. And our first step is organizing a kickoff workshop. We prepare these workshops very well and send a huge list of possible questions in advance to the clients. And during this workshop, normally 2 or 3 hours, something like that, we are going through this bunch of questions and discussing them. And the most important thing for us is to understand deeply how the business works of our customer. Yeah? What is the business case? In matters of a SWOT analysis, what do they want more? What are they afraid of? What they want to approach in the future? Things like that. And after that, we are after understanding the business of the customer, we are going into the target groups, and that's the next big thing, because normally they say, yeah, our customers are young women with interests in blah blah blah, you name it, and they think that's a target group. But in online marketing, you have very detailed options and possibilities to target. You have to have in mind the different mindsets the target group has. For example, they don't know your company, not being aware of your company, of your services. So people like this, you have to introduce your company. Or and on the other end, if you're thinking in a sales funnel, people who are searching a lot for exactly this solution and want to buy it now. Yeah, the claims, the messages you send to them will be totally different. And it depends on a lot of things, not just about the personas, but also on the time, on the channel you send the message, and so on. So we go through in this workshop through these topics to understand deeply the business of our customer, and to understand and develop an understanding together of the target groups. And often it's like, oh, okay, we were not thinking a lot about this. Now we understand it better too, because you were going with us through this. And that's this strategic component of our approach is a very important step to have a valuable basis to do the work after that. And after this understanding of business and target groups, you can go into what they need these people. What they want, what do they wish, what problems do they have, and it's very different on these small target groups they have. And after that, you join all your knowledge about the business of the customer, the target groups, and their needs, and at the nearly end, then you transform this into messages. Then you go into customer journeys, which match perfectly on the business case, match perfectly on the personas, on the target groups. And that's the base for thinking afterwards on now what we're going to do. Because perhaps it's the website is not so important. Perhaps it's more important to generate basic awareness or more contacts via newsletter marketing, so on. So, which channel we choose, which campaign setting we choose, depends a lot of the concept after this workshop.
So there's so many parallels again. I took a lot of notes, and one of the things that you said in the very beginning, you said sometimes they think they need a marketing agency, right? Because we need a marketing agency. And it's like, Brian, it's the same if they say, well, we need SLOs because Google told us we need SLOs. Well, SLOs is just a means to actually solve a bigger problem.
Right.
And
oftentimes then they'll be like, oh, we need SLOs, and those SLOs are not going to tell us anything about what we need. Because I'm going to do an SLO on my CPU. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Great idea. I'm glad you're thinking that way.
Yeah.
But let's see what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I really, this also strikes me is you said you really need, after understanding the business, you need to define the target groups. And here people often have a certain vision about what the target group is. Like in our case, and Brian, I come back to right? When we, for instance, sell to, let's say, SREs. But SRE is a very broad thing, but an SRE has certain needs, certain pains. SREs are often former performance engineers. They are maybe but they have a different background. And so I think we need to figure out what type of smaller groups they are and like where do they come from, and then figure out what is the real pain and how can we solve that pain, and then get them to what we have to offer. Bernhard, in your world though, when you get called in, I assume the product that this company has to sell is kind of well defined, or do you sometimes also have you been into situations where as you're working with that customer and trying to find the target persona, you actually figure out that there needs to be a change in product too to actually then sell to a certain market? Or is it typically always like the product is obviously clearly like, think about, I'm not just making something up, a car company, they sell a car, right? But maybe then in your work with them, you figure out, hey, the car that you sell, nobody needs, you actually would need to build a different car.
In fact, it depends, and it's different from customer to customer. Yes, because one example is more traditional company producing food is like they're doing this for 140 years now. So, hey, we're doing this. So what? But if you're producing sausages and meat, you have to reflect the changes the modern times bring to us. So, and this is one of our jobs, to help our customers to redefine their perspectives of themselves, because there are many times they are thinking from the inner to the outer space. So we are like this, so we have to send this message like we are. So, for example, we are the world's best producers of sausages. So the people out there, younger people, don't know them. For them, they don't have interest in them because they are doing sausages for 140 years. Perhaps they are not interested in eating a lot of meat now. So we help the customer to show them how they are viewed from the outside, how their potential customer, what is the potential look of their customer, and developing there a new perspective, new sides, new ideas of what you can communicate. So it's not about doing sausages for 140 years, but it's about doing sausages with a high level quality, being aware of what this means, all regional and so on. These are the topics which are interesting for the potential customers, and so we are the partner of our customers to develop their sides of their own services, products, and to redefine them, perhaps. And other example could be, let me think, was like. No, it's hard to explain this, so we skip this.
That's okay. But I think I like that example a lot. And my question is, and the reason why I asked this question, and I was hoping you have exactly those conversations, that I think we, from a software engineering perspective, from software industry, before we build something because we think we solve a certain problem for a certain target audience, we should actually learn from you on how you are approaching digital marketing campaigns, because the first thing you want to understand is who is your potential addressable market, what is their pain, and how can we solve their pain, and then let's build or refine that product idea that we had so that we can really sell to that market. And especially if we are if we are a lot of us in the industry, and that's not only for our company, but most companies, most are very engineering driven. Like we're building products with a very engineering focus, and sometimes we forget that we're building products that are not just for engineers, but they should actually have a bigger usage in the future for other target users, but we don't know them, and we never think about that. Maybe the modern SRE that did not go through a 10-year, they didn't go to university where he studied and then had 20 years experience, but maybe the new SRE, had a different profession, and because of COVID, they got re-educated. They only have 6 months of training, and now they have to fulfill the role of an SRE, but it's a completely different SRE than the one that has been doing IT systems engineering for the last 20 years.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's a big lesson learned. And this is also why a lot of the things that you said in the podcast and now it just resonates so well, because I want to make sure our listeners understand, if you're developing products, if you're building features, don't just think you know what problem you solve for a particular persona, because that persona might not be the persona that you think it is.
Yeah.
One of the other additional complications is that the intended user might not be the purchaser, right? If you think about a toy, especially around this time of year, right? Kid's going to want it, but the parent's going to be making the decision. If it's software, maybe you have engineers who are going to use it, but an executive who's going to be signing the check, and they're going to have a thing. For the sausage maker, right? I don't know who's going to be, that's a lot more aligned with who's buying versus using, but maybe if it is a health conscious parent buying sausages for their kid, but they see, locally sourced, blah, 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 I'll get this one instead. So when you're working on those products, it's good to know, maybe the people creating them, certain levels of people don't necessarily fully have to understand, but the company as a whole has to understand as it's going through product development, features, and then marketing especially. And I think that the challenge is way too often it's driven by the current perceptions of what the company is and has to offer. And as you said, you're not looking at it from the outside. You're not looking at what people are interested in. Or maybe if you have engineering-minded marketing people, they're going to miss that side. Or people who only live in the sausage world, right? That's an amazing world. But if they only live in the sausage world, right? You're not thinking of all the other foods and other options out there. So it's that context. It always goes back to those why questions, and why and why and why and who and what. Anyway, you were going to say something there too, Richard. I didn't want to, hope you didn't lose that thought. Maybe you did though.
No, it's exactly what you mentioned about. Other example was to solve a communication problem for a bank here in Austria. They want to. There's a part of the bank is dealing with the youth. Yeah? So they have the young potential customers, make the bank attractive for them. Yeah? So one of the approaches is to do financial. Not schooling, education. That one approach is financial education, because many young people are not aware of basic principles of the money, how to gain money, how to spend money, the methods behind this, what is digital money, what is crypto, you name it. But also that someone has to work for it, and what happens with money at the bank, and so on. The easy way is we have to educate the young people, but you have many other target groups which can help you, and you have to understand this, because there are the parents. Many parents do not have enough education to explain this to their children. You have the teachers who have to represent this stuff, these topics during the school. And you have the employees at the bank who have to explain this to their customers. Yeah? And these 4 target groups on the same topic are have a total different view on this. So, for example, the employee in the bank has to think about, okay, I have a lot of tasks to do, and financial education is one of them. I don't know how to do this. I don't have time. It sounds complicated. I don't want to stand in front of the children with 15 years old laughing at me while I'm doing financial education. And this is a perspective totally different from the youngest one sitting in a class or on the smartphone or watching whatever they're watching. So you need totally different approaches to reach them, to get in contact with them, to make them interact with your tools, with your information. And this only can work out if you understand perfectly how they are thinking, what they need. You say, where is the pain? And to present a solution for this point. And that's a basic principle in online marketing, because, for example, if you do search engine optimization, it's not about many head of, you name it, are thinking about, I want that my company is being found for these words. I don't care. What do you think? What words this is? We do research. We have a look at the market there, where what such words, what keywords are used, and then we do SEO to make to push your ranking, to push the performance of your website. And that's always about having a look at what is going out there and having a look what the target groups are thinking, what they need, what they don't even know that they need, but you have to know it.
I think that's a great example, actually, with the SEO, where you think, hey, because we are all living in bubbles, right? And if I might be the head of XYZ and the head of SEO in a certain company, and I live in my bubble, then I probably know my bubble. And then I optimize my stuff for my bubble, but I miss the whole cloud out there. And I think that's where the outside perspective helps a lot. Now, my question to you is, how often do you then get pushback or feel resistance because they say, but I am in the business for 100 years. You have no clue about my business. Why do you tell me what I need to change? Do you sometimes get resistance like this?
Yes, of course. But there are, for us, two solutions. Number one, after the workshop, they have a deep understanding of our profession we work on together. Solution number two, they are not our customer. It's not you cannot perform as a branding agency if you don't have the respect of your customer. It's all about, I don't know how to say in English, in German it's on the same eye level. So it's not we are delivering like a slave because you said us you have to deliver. But it's about putting the professional skills of both together and make out the best of this. And the solutions we use, that if there is resistance, is in the digital world very simple. We do a quick research and we show numbers, and this is what counts. If somebody don't give don't have a look at the numbers and is doing business, I don't think he will be doing business long. And that's the point. So, for example, the SEO is very easy to having a quick research on the search market, on the trends, and you see within a little time where you can position for some topics where is perhaps a niche where nobody's searching, but you can capture this for you in a half a year, something like that, and where are chances, and where it's don't forget it, don't use this. It's, for example, in the tourism world, search as a keywords like holiday Tirol.
I imagine it can be
forget it.
tough as well because you have people who think they're either their company or their product or visionary or they're unique in the market, yet you're coming back and saying, but people aren't going to understand that. So if we take that vision you have and convert it to what's being looked for in the market, a little of that will come through, but it's not going to be that visionary statement you have, because if you want to capture people's attention, it's got to be what they know, what they're looking for, and then once they get in and see what you have to offer, that's when they'll start understanding. And I would imagine that can be, hard for people to take, right? Because everyone thinks their baby's the most amazing looking baby, and you have to say, well, you have 1,000 people out there with looking at, or billions of people looking at thousands of babies. You gotta put the cute little hat on it to make it look like the cute baby that everyone else has. Is that? I guess that's sort of along the lines of what Andy's talking to. So if you're not, I guess in English it's on the same level, but eye level, they're very similar concept. I imagine that's within that same realm. But yeah, I guess where I'm going is I'm curious to hear if there are, I know you can't go into specifics, but are there any instances where you really had to challenge somebody on that? And how did they, did they come along and say like, yeah, I get it, and move on and then have success? I mean, I don't know if there's a specific story you can go into that or not, but that's, I guess, where I'm going.
Our company is based on three important principles. This one is strategy and consulting. The other one is branding, design, and understand well how brands do function. And the third is the digital part. And with digital, we think all about online marketing, websites, content, and so on. So, and this is like a very 360 approach for to as a service to our customers. And many times we enter in a customer relationship with only a small part. One of them, for example, was like, it's now, let me think, 6-7 years ago, a traditional company here in Tyrol. And they thought, yes, we have to do something on social media, but we don't know how. And in fact, we don't want, but we think we have to. So who can lend us a hand and give us a direction, and let's talk about it. No, not saying we do it, but let's talk about it. So we gave them a clear view on how they can perform on social media. It was, in fact, it was Facebook, Instagram, in terms of what are the target groups, what do they need, to what do they want to learn or receive from you as company, and so on, and what is your image now, and where do you want to move on, and so on. And so we started with this small part of social media strategy, concept. Let's call it concept, because this was not a strategy. And we built up. They learned that we know what we are doing, because the channels were performing. They got the talk back from the customers and from their families, and you're now on Facebook, and so they got into this, and okay, it feels well, and we see on the numbers, we see performance. So let's go further, and we over the years we did the website from the base on, and at the last years we reinvented their brand, because there was a traditional company and had a brand and a logo really old style, like from the 70s. They lived in the world like everybody knows us for looking like this. We can't change this, because we lose something. And we developed together a brand new brand, which is modern, softly shifted in colors, cleaner, and so on. And now they are positioned with a new claim, with a new image, with a new perspective for the future, without losing their past. And that was all about this time together and getting this searching for the words.
Right.
Feel free to use me as a translator.
It was all about trusting us. And trust is a main principle in active and in a good client relationship. And building trust is all about having respect on the profession and the knowledge of the other, and looking forward to put this together to a new solution.
You know, Andy, the parallels between that type of story and the DevOps or cloud migration, building small, seeing results, getting buy-in, and then trusting the new. Besides the parallels you were talking about earlier in the show, it's just amazing how once again we see parallels between different industries, that with the IT world being much younger than all these other traditional industries, it's still all the same patterns, still the same parallels, and it's the same world everywhere.
You also Brian, you always bring up the Microsoft from your day. There's a different Microsoft than what we have today, right? Things like this. Yeah, it's really fast. I think sometimes people, or organization in this case, right, they have to reinvent themselves a little bit. Whether it's just because, as you said, the demography changes or the customer changes, because people, maybe the traditional customer base is no longer there, right? If you're really around for 140 years, I guess the first customer is no longer walking among us.
Unless it was a vampire.
Unless, who knows, right? Who knows? Nah, but I wanted to say one more thing on the discussion we had earlier, because yes, I wanted to say you need to know what your customers want so you can build a product that they need. On the other side, if we would only follow this particular pattern, then we would only build what people think they want and need, and never be really revolutionary and innovative. And I'm just quoting, I think it was Henry Ford, right? Because his claim to fame, his quote was, if I would have listened to our customers, I would have built a faster horse, but not a car. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes you need to still have, make a bold move and say, I'm introducing the world to something they don't know that they need yet. Like, we didn't know we need the iPhone before it came out. Yeah?
But if you think in terms of needs, I need to travel from point A to B. And if I'm there faster, I have an advantage. That's the need. Yeah.
So it's the not marketing the innovation, not marketing something new, but marketing the innovation in what you know or what you're familiar with, right? Yeah. And that's exactly that whole, I can get there faster, right? Yeah. I was using that example with someone else because they were like, we walk 20 miles to work, right? And that's what we've done. We know it's a terrible thing to do. Okay, we're going to sell you a car and you can buy this car. Great, I bought the car, but I'm still walking 20 miles to work. Well, yes, you need to learn to drive the car. Well, I don't have time to do that. Well, but you have the car. You can get there so much better. Take the few minutes to learn to drive that car, and you don't have to walk 20 miles to work anymore. It's fantastic, right? Just do it. And there's these parallels with, how do you make the innovative familiar so that your customers aren't confused? And I think that's where all that marketing stuff comes in.
Hey, Bernhard, I have one more topic because I know we have already it's amazing, 40 minutes passed, but one of the things that you brought up in your, in the German podcast that I listened to, which for me was really interesting because it also came up recently. You mentioned there's different channels that people use where we can reach people, right? You talked about Google, you talked about Twitter, the metaverse, like everything around Facebook and Instagram. We have LinkedIn, we have TikTok. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, and I want to just highlight this because you said obviously people are for different reasons and in different times during their life on different platforms, right? You are on LinkedIn because you're seeking for business opportunity, you're making business connection, and you're doing it is probably between your business hours. In the evening, our generation is on Facebook, the next generation is on Instagram, and the latest generation is on TikTok. And you're in a completely different state of mind when you consume that content on this platform. And therefore, you also need to create completely different content, right, to attract the same people, which I thought was really interesting. I never thought about that because I thought, just creating the same content, but that doesn't matter where I post it but it does matter because different state of mind, different demography.
That's very interesting because it's one topic which our customers are thinking about. Oh, okay, it sounds like it's more work and I have to spend more money on this. Yes, but you have to because you bring it back. And that's the fun thing on online marketing and measuring, because you can show the numbers. So, for example, LinkedIn is a channel we use, but not generally. So there are cases we use it a lot because LinkedIn is an expensive channel for doing marketing, but if you reach out for the right people, the return on invest, it's okay, and you can work with it and you make business with it. With other goals like awareness and something else, it's not the right channel, and we don't spend money on LinkedIn for general topics because it's too expensive. So this is the other part, and we can measure how specific content performs on specific channels, and that's also the main work during an online marketing campaign running. Having a look on what topic with target group A, B, or C, on which channel is performing best, which topics are not performing, which ad sets are performing better, which worse, and so we can optimize and shift budget and make new ads and so on to do more of the things which work. And on the other hand, it's always a little exploration of the market, because you learn a lot out there when you take a look on the numbers, how ad sets perform. And if you see, okay, this trying to reach people with this state of mind with the ad set ABC works better, so you get a clear hint, okay, the message do this or have a look at this works better than the very complicated product explanation which the customer prefers. So, and having a look at the numbers, and for this make the decisions which channel works best, with content works best.
You know, I'm thinking of the business model from earlier, whereas sausage advertising on LinkedIn wouldn't do too much, but a viral dance featuring a sausage on TikTok That's going to be cool. And I've been imagining the sausage dancing,
I got pictures in my head now that hopefully I get out of my head.
So if anybody knows anyone in the sausage industry, viral sausage TikTok dances, I think need to become a thing. But I think it's a great point, right? Because what would they do on LinkedIn? Dude, it's mostly worker people, or like you're getting towards execs, and like, what are you going to do? A history of your company? What's that going to do? You know, you need the kids to be like sausage funny.
And it's so funny that at this point in the conversation, it seems so totally clear. Huh?
Yeah.
But the same people in a workshop, you have to convince for 1 hour why this works better or this works worse. But that's the main thing we have to solve during this period of work, to gain the trust that they understand. Okay, these guys know what they are doing, so let's go further.
I have an idea. We should record a podcast about that topic, so you can then send the podcast to all the people and save yourself an hour and a half, and in the end, just take the paycheck.
And then we'll do a viral podcast dance. But I think the point you make there is really good, because we see this all the time, and I see this even if I have sales engineers, solution engineers who work for me, and every once in a while I'll get on and just shadow one of their calls. And because I'm not leading the call, I can sit back and clearly think and clearly identify what's going on. Whereas if I'm leading the call, I'm in the hot seat. Same thing with the companies they're running the business day to day. By bringing in an outside or a third party who doesn't have to focus on the business, who can take a step back, look at that vision, and then reflect it back to them, that is very often the only way they're going to get the clarity to see that, because when you're in it, you don't have that luxury. And you're trying to see, if you're a fish in the water, you're trying to see the mountaintop, but you're in the water. You're not going to be able to see that.
I often call this a catalytic process. It's not putting something new into the conversation or into the solution, but reflecting it with another perspective, and the associations you have in mind after that often leads to other views and to other state of minds.
Yeah, really. I need to figure out how I can also take this, what I've just learned, and kind of, because basically like Brian, you brought the example of the SE call. That's awesome, right? And Bernhard, you said after 1.5 hours, people all of a sudden, even though it's nothing new, they should have understood this from the beginning, that TikTok is a different audience, but still you need to sit in a room and discuss it through. And I also feel like I have a lot of the same conversations all over again, right? Like you sit in your workshop and explain the same things about SLOs. And then after an hour, all of a sudden I leave the room with a group of people that now understand better what this is all about, even though it should have been clear for them in the beginning, but sometimes it takes somebody else that explains it to them. Yeah. It's a great way of putting it. Cool. I took a couple more notes from the podcast that you initially did, but I just want to point it out here because I want to encourage people to just consume more of the content that you already put out there, even though I assume most of it is probably in German, Bernhard, that you do?
Yes.
Yeah, but I took a couple of things. Defining clear goals and target groups is obviously always very important. I also liked one thing that you said in the very end. It says you have to change your mindset and going from campaign thinking to funnel thinking. You mentioned this earlier. You need to think about an end-to-end user journey as a funnel, and then you can do targeted campaigns depending on where people are on the funnel. Depending on, do they know you already or not? And where are they? How many touch points did you have? Yeah. And then coming back to the title of your podcast that you did, build, measure, and learn, start experimenting. And people sometimes freak out when you say experimenting, because that sometimes means, hey, you don't have no clue what you're doing, right? And sometimes you don't know what you're doing because you just get to learn about what impact does it have, what you do. Yeah. And then adjust. So.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's one of the things I like most on my job. You learn every day, and you have the experience on principal mechanisms of your work. But you learn every day about new businesses, about new target groups, about how companies work in their inner, and I love it because it's very interesting, and normally we find solutions for everyone.
Yeah.
And I love it that you that you took the challenge today to come on our podcast. And I know maybe seemingly Brian and I are in a completely different field and have different backgrounds and maybe different thoughts about this. But for me, this was hugely educational and a lot of lessons learned that I think I can apply in my future conversations I have with the people that I interact with. And that's why I want to thank you, Bernhard.
It was a pleasure, and thank you for asking me out for this, because from the other side, this Pure Performance podcast is high-level stuff, and well, I don't know, I don't understand all of the episodes, but
I don't either.
but I love the way you do this, guys, and hope to hear the next episode.
Cool.
Yeah, and I just want to really say thank you, Bernhard, and thank you, Andy, for bringing him on. You know, sometimes every once in a while we take that risk of, okay, this one's a little bit outside the norm, but as we see here, even though it's different worlds, it's concepts that work in all of them, and it's great to hear. You know, these lessons, these approaches, these techniques that apply to more of a marketing thing, but being able to translate them, you know, from our point of view to the technical side, because this same thing as I said before, the parallel industries. And that's also, I think, one of the things Andy and I, you said you love about your job, you're learning all the time. That's what we love about doing this podcast, is we're learning from sometimes deeply technical people, sometimes things out of a little bit more left field, such as this. So it's always fascinating when we get this opportunity. So thank you for doing this, for helping educate us, and for hopefully helping our listeners gain a new perspective as well. So
getting a perspective from outside the bubble. That's what it's about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. I loved it.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thanks for all of our listeners. And we hope you all have enjoyable holidays. Oh, Festivus. I forgot to mention Festivus. Happy Festivus. All the Americans, that's from Seinfeld. Oh, yeah, you know that. So happy Festivus, everybody. Go air your grievances. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next year. Well, we won't see you, but you'll hear us next year. And Andy, thanks for a fantastic year of Pure Performance. And Rich, I guess this will probably be the last one for the year.
I think it's airing December 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. So Bernhard, thank you for wrapping up a great year for us. And thanks for everyone for listening. Appreciate you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.